Yo, 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 it's your boy Mark Goodman, aka the voice box of the block. I'm back with another one. I'm hopping in the winter like, bro, man, what's happening? Man, I'm super excited to be here, man. It's a wonderful day. It's a busy day, but I'm glad I had an opportunity to stop and talk to my guy, Mike. He's in the building. He had a chance. Man, we've been working on this for the last 2 weeks, man. You're a busy guy.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And that all makes sense, you know what I mean? But before we get started on actually why you're here, man, because this is the podcast, man, and what I do is like to spread the wealth. I give informative information, man, and it's a pod. I like to kick back and enjoy and listen to great people like yourself come on and talk about some of the things that our society needs to know about, needs to improve, need to learn, or even need to build. You know what I mean? So before we get started on that, man, tell the people about yourself.
So a little bit about me is...
we got to know about you.
A little bit about me. I am a father of one. More or less than anything, I'm a man of God. I love God with all of my heart. My unique characteristic in this day and age is, I believe, teaching people how to build wealth from every component of it. So a little bit about my history. Spent a number of years in the U.S. Navy. Loved and enjoyed my time there. And then, it was time to come back home.
Right.
So I came back home and I was in the car business for about 8 years. And then I had an opportunity where God showed me, how to build wealth and have the understanding of financial literacy and fight. There's a difference between financial literacy and financial competency. And he taught me the unique ability of how to have financial literacy plus have financial competency.
Wow.
Because if you make $30 an hour, but you have the mindset that you have $15 an hour, you'll always cater your life around $15 an hour and not $30 an hour.
Absolutely. I agree. It's how powerful. And I don't want to stop you there before we go forward, because you said a key word. I actually have a pen and pencil here because anytime I get a man of knowledge, I also want to write some things down. But you say the mindset. How powerful is to have when you have the right? How powerful a person can be when they have the right mindset.
Mm-hmm.
I'm asking you how powerful a person, because they can. It's a power when you have control of the mindset.
Well, see, this is the thing, with the African-American community, we are the number one consumer in the world.
Absolutely.
But we are at the bottom of the totem pole when it comes to passing legacy.
Mm.
And the problem is that we lack the understanding of how to pass legacy. Because nine times out of 10, we're passing debt instead of assets.
Absolutely.
Or we don't plan properly, have plans in place to create competency, financial competency in our families.
Right.
I.e., let's have the conversation about trust. Let's have the conversation about credit. Let's have the conversation about managing debt. Let's have a conversation about infinite banking, or having money make money for you.
Right. So in a sense, that's why I was telling. I know you, a good friend of mine, OJ, and we always talk about generational wealth, and generational wealth. I think a lot of times it has to start with a conversation, just like you said, sitting down and having a conversation about how can we advance, and that's some of the things that I think the Black family don't sit down as a group, you know what I mean, and really sit down. Because I always talk about this one incident when I was, I love Chinese. I get the shrimp and broccoli, and so I go in there, and the person who's taking my money, she has to be like 12 years old, You know what I mean? That the mother's in the back, you got the other grandmother behind her, she's cooking. And the 12-year-old is taking my money, giving me change, well rounded. I mean, she run the whole front. And it's amazing because you can understand that they get it at that such young age. They get it at 12 years old, what their family is trying to accomplish generational. And I think we don't teach our kids at that age. We too busy teaching them other things without and forgetting what we need to be teaching them generational. And I think that these are type of the conversations, these type of the podcasts that people need to cling on to take these tools and learn what you're about to give them. And I'm so proud of being able to have you on my platform to continue to spread these type of conversations and these type of opportunities as well.
Well, I'm glad you said that, because there's two things that, my mentor always preaches. We, at the surface level, we can kill generational wealth. Generational curses, right? But the problem is that, in the African-American community, we can kill generational curses, but we don't deal with generational patterns. Which patterns are things that are consistent in your life that you have adapted or learned to deal with generationally,
or not to deal with,
or not to do. Even with that being said, like, I can't cater to you. The problem is that you can't have the same mindset on $50,000 that you have on 100.
Yeah, I agree.
And you can't have the same mindset on $100,000 that you have on $200,000.
Right.
And because we have to get into a place where I'm okay, and I come from a big family. My mom is one of 18. I come from a big family. Let me tell you, they taught me how to love, but they didn't tell me the deficiency of how to manage money, or how to make money, or even to the context of how to have good credit, or have the understanding of good credit. Listen,
man, when my father died, all he left me was a broke down riding lawnmower and an old wallet. I still have the old wallet to remind me that I'm going to do much better than my father did. I'm going to. I always say, my daughter, when I pass, my daughter going to have a lot of work to do.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. I always tell people, when they sit at the table with me, I am not concerned about you. I am not concerned about you.
Right.
Listen, I love you. We'll be family. We'll do life together. I'll be your agent for the rest of your life.
Right.
The Bible says, blessed is the man that leaves seeds for his children's children. Listen, I am not concerned about you. Right. I am concerned about your children and their children.
Right.
And the problem is that, the problem is that what we have found in studies that 98% of us are underinsured. 98% of us in the upstate of South Carolina, of that 98%, 40% of that number don't have insurance at all.
Right. And when we talk about, and let's go ahead and jump into it. When we talk about this insurance, let's kind of dumb this down, because some people don't know between whole life and term insurance.
Yep.
So can you let's start from there. And I don't know nothing. Treat me as if I don't know. What is the difference between whole life and term insurance?
Okay, so essentially we'll start with term, because term is what we usually have the conversation about.
Right.
Term is essentially saying, okay, to an insurance company, I have 20 years. In 20 years, I'm betting you in 20 years that I'm going to die. And I'm going to get a $50,000 policy, and in 20 years, I'm going to die. And that policy going to be $22 to $27 a month, right?
Right.
All right. The problem with term is that after those 20 years, you have to prove insurability over again. And the problem is that you're older.
Right.
Time has lapsed. Insurance is only graded by two things: risk, age,
right,
and mortality.
Right.
So the average human in America is graded at the age of 84. The probability if you getting a policy at 25 years old,
right,
for 20 years, and it being $25 a month. Now, when you're 45, that policy jumps up $80.
It does. Yeah, the risk is higher.
The risk is higher.
Right.
And what the conversation that we have most of the time is most people say, well, I got it through work. So then my question to them is, I pose to them, so if you lose your job today, that means you tell me you're uninsured. So the question, this is my question with, first of all, let me say this. Insurance is nothing but a conversation for the people around you.
It has to be. Trust me.
The reason why I say that, because it tells me as an insurance agent or someone who deals with insurance or somebody who is in financial service, how much you love the people around you.
Yeah, I absolutely agree, because a lot of times these younger generation kids, they act like they can't die, and then when they do pass, it's a GoFundMe, or they trying to get a payment plan for guests, and because nobody has a plan to after. So a lot of people take this podcast for granted. Please don't take this for granted. This is for the community. We need to know in detail and sit down and have these conversations. So moving forward, whole life insurance. So we want to move the whole life insurance. I'm interested in the whole life insurance. Okay, I'm asking you where we go. Now, what's whole life insurance? You talked about term. Let's talk about whole life. So
whole life is essentially the what we call infinite banking.
Right.
It's the bank of me. Whole life is the only policy that you can borrow from, and it's not. You don't have to report it to the IRS. You don't have to give them credit. You don't have to give the reason why. You allow it to build, and it builds money for you. So essentially, what you have. So most whole life, you have two separate insurance companies, right? So let's break that down first. Okay. So you have a stock-based insurance company and you have a mutual-based insurance company.
Right.
Your stock-based insurance companies are your State Farms, your Bankers Life, things like that. So those are controlled with a bank entity side of it, right? Then you have what they call Northwestern Mutual, New York Life. Those are mutual owned companies.
And you work with New York Life, am I right?
I do. I work for New York Life. So, which is the largest insurance company in the world, the oldest insurance company in the world, and more so, the most financially stable insurance company in the world. So to say that, on a mutual basis, you get capital gains and dividends.
Right.
On a stock basis, it's just like the bank. The bank keeps the capital gains in the dividends.
Right.
So the actual insurer doesn't receive any benefit for them putting their self in the market.
Right.
So whole life is essentially me saying, I want to take $100,000 policy out on myself, and the insurance company putting that $100,000 in the market. Right. So essentially what happened, it produces capital gains and dividends. From those capital gains and dividends, those policies grow. They grow. So essentially all right, so you take a whole life policy out on a child that is 1 year old.
Right.
And that policy is about $50,000. By the time of their mortality, that policy should have been grown triple what it was bought for. What I mean by that, triple, I mean that $50,000 should be $150,000. And most of us, we invest in whole life policy for our children through Gerber, right?
Right.
But Gerber ends at 18 years old. So that policy no longer exists after that child turns 18 years old. So you got to start another policy.
Wow.
All right. So with mutual based companies, after After 12 to 14 years, the policy begins to self-fund itself. What do I mean by that? After that child turns 12 to 14 years, you never have to pay another premium on that policy for the rest of your life.
Right.
Why it still grows.
Right.
And why is this so essential? Why is this so essential? How do you pass generational wealth through infinite banking?
How do you? That's the question I'm asking. Now, how can this tie to generational wealth for my kids?
So how does it, what you call it? So say you, Mr. Goodman, you take a policy of $200,000 in whole life out on you.
Right.
So you tie that to a trust. So essentially what you do is you tie that component to a trust. And what happens is, say 10 years in your grandchild wants to go to college.
Right.
They call me and they say, well, I need to borrow 40 grand for my child to go to college.
Right.
I'm going to write them a check for 40 grand.
Right.
Here's the thing. You put a provision where if I give you 40 grand, then it is required that I take $100,000 policy out on you. Right? So you take $100,000 policy out on your child or on your grandchild. Right. So essentially what happens is, again, earlier I told you they put that money in the market and it creates capital gains and dividends.
Right.
So those capital gains and dividends goes into the trust.
Right.
And so what happened is that trust begins to grow at 4 to 7% on the yearly daily basis.
Right.
So what happens is by the time your grandchild is 50 to 60, that component of that whole life policy becomes $1 million.
Wow.
Then you take their children and you repeat the same thing.
Right.
Listen, I am the advocate on we have to read for the, because it is clearly stating that we fail for the lack of knowledge, right?
Absolutely.
There's a book out there that says, what would the Rockefellers do, right? What would the Rockefellers do? Well, I'll tell you what they did do. The Rockefellers planned to use the component of infinite banking.
Yeah.
The reason why infinite banking, you can tell me infinite banking works because they have built their wealth off of it. What's different? What is so significant about the Rockefellers?
Right. They're
the most wealthiest family in the world, and nobody knows how much they're worth.
No, it's impossible to know.
And what I mean, the most wealthiest family in the world, nobody has to worry about money. Absolutely nobody in their family. If you're born in it, you'll be wealthy to the day you die.
Absolutely.
So essentially, what conversation do we need to start having in the Black family? Well, a whole life policy in today's world costs you anywhere from $45 to $60 a month. If we are the number one consumers in the world, we waste more money that could be more beneficial for us in longevity.
Yeah. I mean, people spend $60 on liquor.
Listen, on liquor, cigarettes, all of these things.
You know what I mean? So that should be nothing, for $60 a month. That should be nothing.
So, and then the question is how, and that I always tell something, what you call it? Well, whole life, is the major component of it. But the process of insurance is having multiple policies.
Absolutely.
That fit a common goal.
Yes.
What I mean that, of course, you should have a little bit. So there are 4 types of policies. You have whole life, universal life, variable universal life, and you have term. I'm a firm believer.
Out of them four, is any one of them better?
No, not essentially. All of them have a responsibility in your life. And that's, term is for short-term goals. Right. Universal variable life is for when you're in your latter years. Universal life is for when you're in your midlife crisis. Whole life is for your whole life.
Right.
So the components of insurance have to be worked.
Right.
Like you got to work the system.
Right.
And the problem is what we have to have an understanding is that we have to build blocks,
right.
Step by step, step by step, step by step,
right.
step by step. Because in order to break the things, the poverty patterns
right.
off our family lives,
right.
then we got to do something that is not consistent of what we have seen.
I agree. And another thing, when it comes to insurance, whole life I want to talk to you about, as far as what they cover, fair to good. We're talking a lot of these things, man. I looked it up. We have in whole life coverage. When we talk about diabetes, talk about high blood pressure, all these things are inherited in the Black community. So it is important, imperative that we have these conversations at a young age. I'm talking about, this podcast is so fruitful to the Black community because, again, so many times I hear people passing and then it is a struggle for the parents to bury you properly because they don't have no funding, because nobody invested a conversation that we're having to keep this ball rolling. And a lot of people got to be more informed. And not only this podcast, but to do your homework, do your research. Like you said, a lot of people, the lack of knowledge can kill a community. And I think that a lot of people overlook these type of conversations because they're alive. And the thing that was so beneficial about whole life is that I think that you can take advantage of it while you're living.
Yep.
And that's the most important part, because term life you can't touch. But as far as the whole life, there's an opportunity there for your kids to touch. And if you're mindful of that you can really build off that. But it starts with the conversation.
Well, listen, this is what people think, right? Two things that I have learned by doing this business. People will call you after they need you. Let me be completely transparent. Don't call me after you need me. I can't do nothing for you after you need me.
Yeah, you're right about that.
And secondly, like the biggest thing is that life insurance, the key word in it, life,
right?
Not mortality insurance.
Right.
Not death insurance.
Right.
It pays a death benefit.
Right.
But it's life insurance.
Right.
What that means that I should be able to cater these policies where they maintain a lifestyle that I want to keep.
Huh.
And the problem is that in most people's generation, what we see in our generation, and there's a lot of this, heels up and down. My job as a financial, someone who works in financial service, is to make sure families, especially our families, stay like this. And how do we do that? By having conversations, sitting at the table, having these conversations.
Right.
Because I believe that it is my mandate.
Is it one of those things we talked about earlier? We talked about breaking curses. Are these conversations fearful in the Black community?
They are.
Sometimes, obviously we talk about emotions with depression and things like that. That is fearful in the Black community. Sit down and talk about. It's talking about life insurance and what we need to do after you're passed. Is that fearful in the Black community?
Well, it's the slave mindset, right? One, let me give you statistical facts, right? Statistical facts is 1 out of every 4 Black men do not want to talk about mortality.
Damn.
Right?
Right.
And 1 out of every 5 Black women does not want to talk about mortality.
They don't want to talk about it.
Don't want to have the conversation about mortality. Because one thing is consistent in life is that you have a birth date and you have a death date.
Absolutely.
Listen, you came in alone, you're going to leave alone.
Absolutely.
Here's where the slave mentality comes at. I can't leave nothing so they can eat off because I can't enjoy it.
Mm. And I think another thing with it is that we have been taught to survive.
Mm-hmm.
You don't leave nothing if you're trying to survive. You eat everything. You don't leave nothing if you're trying to survive. At some point, we have to get comfortable and figure out how can we not feel like we just survived.
Well, see, this is what I tell people. My job is to show you the table. All right.
Right.
The table is representation of you, me showing you the table or pulling you to the table is showing me that you no longer live in or exist in the mindset that I have to survive.
Mm.
Because how wealth is not determined about what you have in your account.
No, it's not.
Wealth is not determined how much money that you leave this world with.
Right.
Wealth is determined how much knowledge you leave so they don't make the mistakes too.
Absolutely.
My grandfather always used to say, watch me trip so you don't trip too.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Listen, probably one of my greatest saying in life. Listen, I trip, but my daughter will never be a beneficiary of how I tripped.
Say it again. I would repeat that again one more time.
Listen, my daughter will not be a beneficiary of how I trip.
Right. And that's
meaning the things that I failed at, she won't fail it.
Exactly.
The things that I went through life struggling with,
absolutely,
she won't struggle with.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And that is what I call a rich dad. Having the knowledge to tell your generation, the next generation of your child that, hey, listen, I went through this. I know how to get through this, and I can teach you not to go through this. You don't have to go with nobody else. You can come straight here for the knowledge, man.
So if you want to get in contact with me, my number is 864-804-0031, which, you can share it. And, this is a key component that, right. As we have a conversation, my job is not to sell you anything.
Absolutely.
My job is to navigate your life, or see what you have in place, create solutions for how do we build from this moment forward, and how do I expand your horizon where it makes sense that you're not purchasing anything, but right. You're building wealth.
Absolutely.
And I think what we see historically is that so many insurance agents just want to sell you something.
Yeah, because a lot of times that I do my research, some whole life insurance companies get a bad rep. So we want to make sure we filter through all that and saying this is beneficial to the Black community, and the knowledge, the understanding is important. Mm-hmm. Sorry for cutting you off, but go ahead.
And and see so as people contact and they have information, they sit down at the table. Right. This is my thing. This is what I always tell every customer. If you didn't learn anything, don't call me back.
Straight up.
I'm being completely transparent with you. If you didn't learn anything, if nothing sparked a fire in your life, don't call me back. That means I didn't do my job well enough to show you something that you didn't know.
Right.
And even if you came into this conversation not knowing a lot, not having an understanding of a lot, then we didn't do enough job to inform you in the areas where you didn't know. Always, my slogan in this business is I got your six. Anybody ever know anything about the military? When I say I got your six, that means I got your blind spots. Listen, then the question becomes, financially, where in your life are you blind at that I have, or a component that I have that I can cover?
Right.
And that's the mindset that we got to start having it as the Black community. How can I cover your back?
Absolutely.
And you know, I don't have all the answers. Listen, and this is the reason why in this business, you know, you got to find some people who are good teammates. And I'm grateful and thankful to God that, you know, because I don't have all the answer, God has put me around people who have, you know, who have the resources if we don't have the answer.
Absolutely.
To fix the thing. And it's the conversation that we got to start having, you know, generational wealth, generational curses.
And I think I'm so glad we're here. And as we close out, we can go all day about this, man. And the Zoom link don't last for so long. But as we dial it down, man, I like how you said it, man. We gotta have these conversations about generational wealth and generational curses, because when you break those curses, you begin to have those wonderful conversations, man. And I'm so glad I had an opportunity to talk to you, man. We've been working for this for a couple of weeks, man. And again, I want, before I leave, go ahead again, tell them how to get in touch with you. Whole life insurance, man, is a conversation they need to have, man. So many times I see the community upstate fail when there's a death in the family and they in need of these services. And like you said, what's you said before? If you need me after it's too late, it's too late. So we try to nail it in the head before. And these conversations, sit down and have with your family, man. And that's what it's about. Why are we scared to have these conversations about emotions, about after death? It is not fearful. It's actually comfortable knowing that you have things like this in place. And the wonderful guy, Mike here, man, he's here to help you, man. So again, how can you get in touch with you again?
So you can get in touch with me. My phone number is 864-804-0031. It is the best way to get in contact with me. Give me a text, give me a call. We'll set up something, you know, and I'll be completely transparent. The first conversation that we have, I probably won't talk to you anything about insurance, because, you know, my job is to get to know you, get to know your family, get an understanding of your family dynamic. Absolutely. And from there, then we go into the component for insurance. It's always conversation, because in this point in my life, it can no longer, you know, nothing about this business is transactional, it's relational. And I'm trying to build relationships, you know, that last forever. I want to be the first person you call. Absolutely. I want to be the last person that you call. Absolutely. Most of all, I want to be that person that rocks with you in between those times. Absolutely. And that's the key component, you know, and the key component is creating a conversation where we as people, you know, black, white, brown, green, red, yellow, blue, whatever, you know, us as people get in and start having these conversations of how we can better our community. Okay. Because listen, if you broke, you always sad. Always mad.
Right now, I'm telling you right now, a lot of them guys are not gangsters, they're not hard, they're just frustrated. They don't have no money. So they return to violence. They broke. Yep. You know what I'm saying? And here, these conversations we having, man. I love you, Mike, for being a wonderful, positive for the upstate. And we continue to build generational wealth. This is my time. It's your boy, Mark Goodman, aka the voice box of the block, and we out. All right, Mike.
All right, have a good one.